Okay, so you ready to dive into some really weird stuff?
Always up for a challenge, you. What have you got for me this time?
Buckle up, because we've got two pretty different sets of documents to untangle here.
Okay, lay it on me.
First, we've got this thing called coping mechanisms.
Coping mechanisms. What's that all about?
Honestly, it's kind of a wild ride.
Mm.
It's like a bunch of short stories all mashed together with some
Mm.
strange thoughts thrown in.
Mm.
Real out there stuff, like something you'd find in the darkest corners of the internet.
I see. I'm intrigued already.
Yeah. Surreal narratives, characters doing
Yeah.
unexpected things, let's just say.
That's one side of the coin. What's on the other?
So on the flip side, you've got this Eksjö and Encyclopedium.
Eksjö Encyclopedium.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, this one tries to play it straight like it's just a regular history of this town.
The
Sure.
history of Eksjö.
But here's the thing. The deeper you go, the weirder it gets.
Oh, really?
It's like it keeps bumping into the bizarre stuff and even backing up some of the wild claims from those coping mechanism stories.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So you're saying there's overlap between these two very different sources.
Exactly. And a ton of it is blacked out, redacted,
Yeah.
you know. Makes you wonder what they were trying to hide.
Makes you think, doesn't it? So what's our mission for this deep dive? What are we trying to figure out?
Well, our challenge today is to see how these two accounts connect, especially the strange stuff that supposedly went down in Eksjö. And there's no better place to start than with the sewers Eksjö. That pops up in both.
Sewers deck show.
I'm listening. In coping mechanisms, they're like this whole other world, you
Yeah.
know? This bizarre underworld that these characters, Tommy Scooties and Johann Sinop,
Uh-huh.
keep exploring.
Wait, Johann Sinop, isn't he the John Cena guy from those notes?
That's the one. The document actually has a footnote saying to thank John Cena.
helpful.
So yeah, they're down in these sewers, and the rules of reality seem to kind of
Bend a little.
bend a lot. It gets pretty wild down there.
I can imagine. Now, where does the Eksjö Encyclopedium come in on this sewer business?
Here's the kicker. Even the encyclopedia, straight-faced as it tries to be, confirms these Eksjö sewer experiences were a thing.
So they're not shying away from it. Interesting.
And get this, they specifically say it wasn't just people on drugs having a weird time.
Really? They make a point of saying that.
Yeah, which kind of makes those crazy stories and coping mechanisms even more unsettling, you know? Like, what was so strange down there that they felt the need to deny the drug thing specifically?
It definitely adds another layer to the mystery, doesn't it? It's like
Uh,
they're acknowledging something happened, but they're not ready to tell us what.
Exactly. And that brings us to another weird thing that pops up in both. The coping atom.
Gooping at him. Okay, I'm all ears.
So in coping mechanisms, this coping atom is like this super powerful, mysterious element. Yeah. Almost mythical, you could say.
I see a powerful element. So how does the encyclopedia tie into this?
Well, both sources say the last time anyone saw this thing, it was at the Eksjö Zimbabwean embassy.
The Zimbabwean embassy
Yeah.
in Eksjö.
Yep. Of all places.
Hmm.
And get this, the guy who supposedly had it was named Jeremy Cucumber.
Jeremy Cucumber.
Sure.
Another John Cena situation.
You got it. Another helpful footnote tells us to think John Cena again. It's wild.
So we have this mysterious element, this cuping atom popping up in both these bizarre stories and a seemingly official encyclopedia. And it's all tied to this John Cena character. I'm starting to see how deep this rabbit hole goes.
And we're just getting started. Now remember, Johann Sinop, our John Cena friend from the sewers.
Oh, yeah, the sewer explorer. What about him?
Well, according to coping mechanisms, he ends up getting rat powers.
Rat powers. How does one acquire rat powers?
It's a long story, but apparently it involves snorting the ashes of a rat named Rod.
He snorted rat ashes.
Okay.
Yeah, down in the sewers.
Naturally.
I know it sounds nuts, but the encyclopedia backs this up too.
Wait, seriously? They mentioned the rat powers too.
They do. And get this, they even say it might have been divine intervention, like some kind of miracle or something. Hold on, a miracle involving snorting rat ashes. This town is something else.
I told you it gets weird. And the encyclopedia even mentions this rat rod getting struck by lightning for, quote, inhumane acts of pun forgery.
Inhumane acts of pun forgery. Okay, you can't make this stuff up.
I'm telling you, it's all right there on the documents. And this divine angle keeps popping up. Both sources talk about encounters with a god or some kind of powerful entity in the sewers Eksjö.
So not only are there rat powers and pun-forging rats, but there are also divine beings hanging out in the sewers. I'm starting to think Eksjö is where all the strange stuff in the universe converges.
You might be onto something. And the encyclopedia tries to make sense of it by connecting these encounters to this guy, Jan Eklund. He's also known as Hegel Breakeren.
Hi, Gulbreakeren. Okay, another name to keep track of. What's his deal?
He was a priest in Eksjö, wrote a couple of religious books called Bible and Bible to Den Reviderate Copian.
So a priest with a penchant for the strange is involved somehow. This is getting more and more intriguing.
It all ties together. So we've got these weird connections between the stories and this encyclopedia. Now let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture, the history of Eksjö, especially what happened in 1954.
1954, a pivotal year, it seems. All right, I'm ready to delve into the history books. What happened in Eksjö that year?
Well, the Eksjö Encyclopedium tells us that the big event of 1954 was this thing called the Moiningen.
The Moiningen. What a strange word.
It's also sometimes called the Hegel Massacre. And apparently, a bunch of people in Eksjö saw their money and something called moj just kind of dissolve. Emulsify is the word they use.
Their money emulsified. And what is this moj?
That's the thing. The encyclopedia says it's another word no one knows where it came from.
So a mysterious word for a mysterious substance that was apparently important enough to be emulsified along with people's money. This is wild.
It gets weirder. They say everyone in Eksjö was using this word moj, but nobody outside the town had ever heard of it.
A hyperlocal phenomenon. Fascinating. So what caused this mass emulsification event? Do they have any explanations?
Here's where it gets really interesting. In 2017, this Hogelbreker and guy, Jan Eklund, actually claimed responsibility for it.
Hold on, the priest. He took credit for emulsifying people's money.
Yep, during an interview on Swedish TV, no less. He even said he had God by his side.
Well, that's a convenient excuse. Did he offer any details, like how he did it or why?
He did. He even showed them all this data about the event and other strange things that nobody knew about before.
And how did the TV station react to all this?
They were pretty skeptical. They tried to dismiss it with some vague scientific models. But here's the thing, they couldn't fully explain it themselves.
So a priest claims responsibility for a bizarre, town-wide emulsification event with divine assistance, no less, and has data to back it up, but the experts can't debunk him. Eksjö just keeps getting stranger and stranger.
And the weirdness doesn't stop there. After Eklund published this book called Skjernskott Up by Himlen, all these crazy myths started popping up in Eksjö.
Oh, so this book added fuel to the fire. What kind of myths are we talking about?
It's like people started believing that spontaneous emulsification was just a normal Tuesday in Eksjö.
I can't even imagine. Give me some examples. What kind of things were they saying?
Well, they said gasoline would just vanish, poof, gone.
God.
And then alcoholic drinks, they said they just start bubbling uncontrollably.
Like evaporating or something?
Yeah, something like that. Oh, and get this.
What now?
They said that kids between 7 and 10 years old were turning into the school lunch soup.
They were turning into soup. Okay, now that is just bizarre.
Right? The encyclopedia calls it mass hysteria. They say people were leaving angry notes all over town, freaking out about it.
I can only imagine the chaos. A town gripped by fear of emulsification and soup-based transformations. So what happened next in this saga?
Hold on tight, because this is where it gets really wild. Out of nowhere, this bakery pops up. Hagel Bakery, they call it. The Hegel Bakery.
A Hegel Bakery. And I'm assuming this wasn't just any ordinary bakery.
You got that right. The encyclopedia actually confirms it just appeared suddenly. And the crazy part is it immediately got rave reviews online.
For what? Emulsified pastries?
Close. They raved about these things called Brenda Hegel Kokor, burnt Hegel cookies. 9 out of 10 chicken drumsticks they gave them.
9 out of 10 chicken drumsticks. That's an interesting rating system.
Right. Oh, and the review even said that 3 of the drumsticks were extra large. And then almonds got the same weird rating too.
So burnt cookies and almonds rated in chicken drumsticks. This Hegel Bakery was something else, wasn't it?
It really was. And here's another little detail the encyclopedia mentions. When the bakery appeared, it actually damaged some guy's fence. Vilbro Hansen was his name. They even say the unpaid bill was 249 Swedish krona.
Wow, they even have the cost of the damages. That's a level of detail you wouldn't expect in a story about a magical bakery appearing out of thin air.
I know, right? And the encyclopedia keeps stressing that all this weird stuff is exclusive to Eksjö. Nowhere else.
So Eksjö is like this epicenter of the strange.
It really seems that way. Which brings us back to Hagelbrekeren, remember him? Jan Eklund the priest.
Oh yeah, the emulsifying priest. Where does he fit into all of this?
Well, the encyclopedia has these bits and pieces about him. They say before the bakery popped up, he was living in a shed in Kutkulum, Ulrikum, back in 1948.
Living in a shed. Sounds about right for a mysterious figure like him.
And they even verified that detail, which is pretty surprising.
Verified it. How?
Who knows?
Yeah.
But there you have it in black and white.
Okay, I'll bite. Anything else about our enigmatic priest?
Oh, yeah. There are all these stories about him hanging out in the woods near Eksjö in the mid-60s,
Yeah.
but they never say exactly what he was doing there.
Lurking in the shadows, a man of mystery.
Totally. But here's the thing that might be even more important. He had this habit of unfertilizing crops.
Unfertilizing crops. What does that even mean?
It's like he was making the land less fertile somehow, and it caused a huge famine in Eksjö. People were so desperate they started drinking spoiled milk.
Spoiled milk, and that ties into
The next chapter of Eksjö, weirdness. The idolization of emulsification.
the idolization of emulsification, of course.
Yep, it was a whole movement. Mojarna, they call themselves. Lasted from 1960 to 1980.
A 20-year movement dedicated to emulsification. What did they do exactly?
The Encyclopedia says it all started because people in Eksjö were feeling this weird, overwhelming emotion. They called it the swell of emotion.
The swell of emotion, another uniquely extra phenomenon. What was it like?
Nobody really knows, but the Encyclopedia thinks it might have something to do with what was in their bathwater.
Their bathwater. What was in their bathwater?
It doesn't say, but they do say people in Eksjö used to drink their bathwater.
They drank their bathwater. Okay, that's a new one. So the swell of emotion is linked to bathwater consumption. And how does emulsification fit into all of this?
Here's where it gets really strange. The Mojers thought the only way to deal with this swell was to drink spilled milk.
Spilled milk, that's specific.
But not just any spilled milk. It had to be spoiled. And it had to be spilled by accident.
Accidentally spilled spoiled milk. Got it. So they were just wandering around hoping someone would drop a glass of spoiled milk.
Basically.
Yeah.
And they couldn't warn the person spilling it either.
Yeah.
Had to be a total surprise.
This is getting more and more outlandish. And how did they decide who got to spill the milk?
They had a whole democratic process for choosing the spiller of milk.
A democratic process for spilling milk, Eksjö takes its ritual seriously. But you said earlier that the same person kept getting chosen?
The Encyclopedia mentions that, yeah. Kind of sus, right?
A little bit. So this lucky spiller of milk would accidentally spill some spoiled milk, and then what?
Then everyone would rush to drink it off the floor.
They drank it off the floor. Didn't they at least use a cup or something?
Nope, straight off the floor. But it couldn't just be any old spoiled milk. It had to be so rotten that you couldn't even suck it up with a straw.
Okay, so we've got accidental spillage, spoiled to a very specific degree, and floor drinking. Anything else?
Oh yeah, the Encyclopedia even lists the different ways they drink it. Dough scrapers, spatulas, strainers, you name it.
I can picture it now, a whole crowd of people huddled around a puddle of spoiled milk, scraping it up with whatever they could find.
It's a pretty vivid image. And
Yeah.
some people even use their hair or their shoes.
Hair and shoes. Okay, that's a bit much, even for Eksjö.
I know it's crazy. But the Encyclopedia says over time, the spoiled milk stopped working as well.
So what did they do?
They just drank more of it, which you can imagine led to a lot of upset stomachs and probably a town-wide lactose intolerance epidemic.
A town full of bloated, lactose-intolerant milk drinkers. What a sight that must have been.
And just when you thought it couldn't get any weirder, the Encyclopedia throws this in. The slicing unit at Kronofogden.
The slicing unit. At Kronofogden, that's the Swedish, what is it, tax agency?
Enforcement
It's
authority.
enforcement authority, right? What's the slicing unit?
Right.
And how does it connect to all of this?
They say it might be linked to Hagel Brekerin and his weird thing with trouser zippers.
Wait, he had a thing with trouser zippers?
Yeah, apparently he liked to rip the seams.
He ripped the seams of trouser zippers. Okay.
It's a strange one, but the Encyclopedia seems to think there's a connection between that and this slicing unit, like they were working together or something.
So we've got a mysterious government slicing unit, possibly working with a seam-ripping priest. This is getting out there even for me.
Oh, and there's one more bizarre detail they throw in.
Hit me with it.
Something about reporting cock explosions to a Michael Persbrandt at Kronofogden.
Cock explosions. Okay, I'm officially lost.
I don't blame you. It's like they took all the weirdest stuff and crammed it into one sentence.
That about sums it up. So we've gone from rat-powered sewer dwellers and divine encounters to emulsified money and a town obsessed with drinking spoiled milk off the floor.
And let's not forget the mysterious bakery, the seam-ripping priest, and the government slicing unit.
It's almost too much to process. But here's the thing that really gets me. These two accounts, coping mechanisms and the Eksjö Encyclopedium, one's like a fever dream, the other tries to be all factual and historical, but they keep converging on these incredibly specific and bizarre details about Eksjö. It really makes you think about what we consider real or true, you know?
Yeah, it's like they're two sides of the same weird coin.
Yeah.
And it all comes back to this question. How do we make sense of things that defy explanation, especially when those things are happening in a specific place to specific people? It challenges our whole idea of how history is written and how we perceive reality.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder what other seemingly unbelievable stories might have some truth buried beneath the surface.
Exactly. So let's do a quick recap for our listeners, because I know this has been a lot to take in. We've been looking at coping mechanisms and the Eksjö Encyclopedium, two very different sources that tell a very strange tale about this town, Eksjö.
And it's a tale that's full of twists and turns. We have confirmed events like the Moojning, where people's money emulsified.
We've got Hegelbrecherin, a priest who may or may not have been behind it, and who definitely had some unusual habits.
Then there's the Hegel Bakery that appeared out of thin air, and a 20-year movement dedicated to drinking spilled, spoiled milk.
And alongside those more or less confirmed events, we have the wilder stuff, like rat powers and divine beings in the sewers.
And who could forget the slicing unit? It's enough to make you question everything you thought you knew about this quiet little Swedish town.
It really is. And it leaves us with a final thought to ponder. What if there's more truth to those unbelievable stories than we think? What if the Kamain atom isn't just a made-up thing? What if those sewer encounters were real?
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What if the extraordinary is more common than we realize, just hidden in plain sight?
Maybe Extra is just the tip of the iceberg. Maybe there are other places, other stories, just waiting to be uncovered.
And maybe it's up to us to keep digging, keep questioning, and keep an open mind to the possibilities, even the ones that seem utterly unbelievable.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the mysteries of Eksjö and the nature of truth itself. Until next time, stay curious and keep diving.